Rob Tebbutt here for ID Boxing. Delighted as always to be joined by Frank Smith. Big one today, Chris Eubank Jr. versus Conor Benn. I am joined, of course, by the most conflicted man in this entire promotion. Frank, how was that for you?
It's been fun. It's been fun. I've had some great late night calls with Callis Howland in bed next to my missus, saying some things and then going, ugh, like that. And I look at her and she gives me the eyes, and I don't talk to her then for about 3 days. So it's going to be a long 2 months. I might have to move in with you. You don't mind, do you?
Sure.
I'll have to move in with someone because I don't think I'll be putting up. Even the last 3 days have probably been the most arguments I've ever had. So it's going to be fun though. Big fight.
Very much so. In all seriousness, let's talk about that kind of the start of the fight, the being talked about, the negotiations, and as we all kind of joked about there, you are in a somewhat conflicted position. How difficult was this fight to get made for yourself, but also for both sides?
Look, I think this fight's been spoken about for a long time. It's a natural fight, not necessarily. People years ago, when you said it when people say to us, Benn fight Eubank, you go, no, different weight, it's never going to happen. But it's the same thing you would have said about Brook and Gennady Golovkin. You know, so it's a fight that's been spoken about for a while. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, really, it came up and Conor was like, I'll do that. I'll take that fight tomorrow. And I think it made the most sense. It's really, you know, Conor Benn had other options, Chris had other options, but this was the biggest fight for both of them, in truth. You know, this was the biggest fight out there, and we've seen just from the reception it's got already on social media here today. You know, it's going to be like, I think this is one of the biggest British boxing fights in recent times. You know, away from maybe some of the heavyweight fights, like if we can make Joshua against Fury, for example. This is huge. This is going to do huge numbers. You know, for me, it's been fun. It's been a fun 3-4 weeks with Callis Howland. You know, I've spoken to Callis Howland more than I've spoken to my missus. It's been you know, back, forth, hours of phone calls a day, but it was a fight that we both wanted to make happen, and you know, there were stumbling blocks. There were many occasions where we thought this isn't going to happen, you know, for many different reasons on both sides. Different bits and pieces came up, whether it was weight, whether it was this, whether it was walking second, whether it was whose name came first, all that, in truth, irrelevant stuff on that certain bits of it. But no, we got there, and yeah, like I say, it's been, for me personally, it's going to be a fun lead up. I just like putting on a good event. I can't do anything. When they get in the ring, I can't help who beats who. That's where my job stops. My job is, do we put on a great show? Does it look great? Yes. So I'm going to sit there, like I said before, half and half scarf, no emotion, not smiling, not crying, just looking round, thinking, if I smile at the wrong point, I'm going to get killed by my missus. If I smile here, Conor Benn might punch me. So he actually always says, when he beat Chris Van Heerden, Chris Algieri, so if you look at the front row, in one of those two fights, I see it every fight the same. I'm not like a jumping up and down, I'm looking around, seeing what's going on. I sat there like that, and afterwards he went to me, you show no emotion. What is wrong with you? I want to see you up and celebrating. So before we made this fight, after the last fight, he said, next fight, when I knock him out, I want to see you up there. I want to see you on the... I was like, yeah, mate, I'll do that. Next fight for you. Can't really get away with that one now, so but it's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to the build-up because it's going to be a special occasion, and delighted to be a part of it.
Just want to dial back there. You mentioned Brook versus Gennady Golovkin, great fight, but we also how that fight ended with Brook jumping up 2 weight classes and being stopped in 4 rounds by Gennady Golovkin. Big risk this fight for Conor Benn. I mean, I think the general consensus is with some people that it's kind of not win-win for him, but it's no risk. If he loses, he lost to the bigger man. But there's a danger element to this fight. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, but at the same time, there's a danger element to a lot of the fights at 147 he could have had. You know, you've also got in Chris Eubank coming down in weight as well. So, I mean, Conor's making the bigger jump. Chris is going to a weight that he hasn't been for, I think, since he was 18 years old, he said. You know, so that's going to be difficult as well. He's going to have to push him through that. You know, I think they've both got positives and negatives out of this in terms of the build-up. But, you know, Conor Benn would fight anyone, would take on anyone. Like I say, the fights at 147 that were out there for him, he wanted to fight the big name, the best names, the hardest fights. And some of those may have been a harder fight than this fight necessarily. This is going to be hard because he's going up against someone bigger, naturally bigger than him. But when you see the two of them, and when you see what they look like, the weight they've got at the minute, there's not much difference in them. But it's probably going to be the difference is Chris has been in there with some bigger punch, you know, like even George Groves, he spoke about 168. You know, Chris has been up at that weight, he's taken big shots there. But Conor's got a lot of attributes that, you know, maybe Chris hasn't faced so far. So, you know, I think there's pluses and minuses on both sides. I think there's risk for both guys. And I think they summed it up well, both of them. You know, say he says about 60%. these guys, it means so much to them. They're going to go in there. You know, I'm sure both of them are going to have, like I say, where Chris has got to lose some extra weight, he may not be exactly what he was when he was making 160, but Conor's got the same on that side, so they've both got those disadvantages and advantages. But I think they're both going to put in 100% for this fight because it means so much to them.
Chris said about making the weight at 157. He did also refer to the rehydration clause. A lot of talk around that at the minute. £10 rehydration clause for the next day?
Who knows? Next day.
You probably know.
I know. No, you don't know.
That's why I'm asking you.
I can't tell you. Secret, big drama show. You'll find out.
When will I find out?
I don't know, maybe after the fight.
Okay, well, we look forward to that. Back to the fight itself, DAZN pay-per-view. I did mention to Kalle Sauerland, of course, co-promoter, that it was the first pay-per-view on DAZN. He corrected me. Of course, we've got KSI versus Swarms next weekend or the weekend after. How well are we expecting this to do on DAZN pay-per-view? It's a big fight, but you know it doesn't come with the crossover appeal that potentially it could have got on other platforms. How big a fight is this for DAZN pay-per-view, and what numbers are you expecting it to generate?
Look, I think this does huge numbers. I think this fight, you know, there's a lot of talk about the platform, like the Sky platform. It's obviously massive. It's a massive platform, no doubting that. But this fight has the opportunity to get access to, saw it last night, Channel 4, a 5-minute segment on Conor Benn, BBC all over it, ITV all over it, which are bigger than Sky Sport or the Sky platform. You know, so we have to approach it in a different manner. DAZN have always been good at that. They've understood that in the short term, they need to grow their platform. In turn, they need to work with other partners. You know, social media is a big platform in its own right to push this fight. Both of these guys are very active on social media, got big followings. You know, so there's a lot of strengths on the other side why this fight will do well. I see it doing huge numbers. It does huge numbers if it was on Sky, BT, wherever it would be. This one's on DAZN pay-per-view. This is their big opportunity. You know, we've delivered big numbers. You know, especially in the US, we've seen the pay-per-view shows there against Bivol. We've got Golovkin coming up against Canelo. You know, so it's not our first rodeo. We've done it. We know how to deliver numbers. DAZN know how to deliver numbers, and I think you're going to see a great success on the 8th of October.
Can you put a number on it? What you're expecting it to do on pay-per-view?
I think it could do 700,000-800,000 buys, which for a pay-per-view in this day and age is massive numbers.
Chris Eubank Jr. said that this fight is quote-unquote lose-lose for him. What do you think to that?
I understand why there's probably negatives in it for him, because people will look at Chris in terms of if he loses to Conor Benn, it's hard for him to then, as he said, fight for a middleweight world title. You know, his career at that point. But at the same time, Conor Benn's not some novice that doesn't stand it. Like, this is a true 50-50 fight, and I'm going to say that to the camera. What?
Comment below if you think this is a 50-50 fight or not. I'll give all your abuse to Frank Smith on Twitter.
Yeah, thanks very much. But I can understand, you know, they're in different stages of their career as well. You know, Conor's 26 years old, 25 years old. Chris is 32. Chris has been in many big fights. Conor has built his way up to where he is now. And they both deserve this. This is, in terms of like, they both bring equal amounts to this fight, ultimately. And I think for Chris, it probably is, if he loses, the end for him, in truth. Because, like he says, his dream is to fight for a world title. If Conor loses, he can come back at 147 in big fights, you know, or even you know, there's big opportunities there for him still. So I think both of them have got things to gain from it and things to lose. But, you know, Chris is at that later stage of his career where it's a bit harder for him to come back.
Just back to the DAZN pay-per-view. Is that going to be available in pubs? Obviously, everyone wants to go out, have a drink, and watch the fight in a pub. Is that going to be something that's going to be available to them? Yeah,
look, we're working through that all now with the DAZN team, and I'm sure we'll release some info very soon on that.
Conor Benn, you mentioned that he had other options. What options were there for him?
Well, look, the fights he's been calling for at 147. You know, he wants the biggest fights. He'd fight Virgil Ortiz tomorrow. You know, he'd fight Keith Thurman. Fight any of these names. He wanted to fight. You know, I know, but he wanted to fight Kell Brook. If the world titles were available now, he'd fight for those. You know, so he would go after anything. So that's why this fight made a lot of sense. You know, he'd be taking, you know, he's even said, I spoke to him the other week when we were getting close with this, he was like, even fight, you know, Avanesian. These fights are tough fights for him. So, you know, there was a lot of options there for him, but I think this made the most sense for everyone.
People have levelled this as a cash-out fight for Conor Benn. Just your thoughts on that?
I don't believe so. I think, look, it's a massive, there's no hiding away from it. It's a massive fight, a massive payday for both guys. Quite obvious, you know. But he is taking a risk by stepping up in weight. And he could have, like I said, had a tough fight at 147, and people would have gone, in my opinion, people would have gone if he lost. See, Conor Benn not going to make it. And I do feel like here, like he can go into this fight. I do think there's less pressure on him in that sense because, like I say, he can come back at those fights at 147. You know, Chris has been in there with some great names. We've seen it. He's been in there in some tough fights. So you know, it's also going to give a good tell of where Conor Benn's at as well.
Final question from me. I, like a lot of people here, and I'm sure everybody watching at home, was looking forward to seeing potentially Senior and Nigel here today. I won't ask you about Nigel, but I will ask about your father-in-law, future father-in-law, Chris Eubank Sr. How is he? Can we expect to see him at some point in the promotion?
Maybe. You know, honestly, I'm not sure where he's going to be. You know, I know Nigel. The plan is that he's going to spend a lot of time in camp. You know, so I'm sure we'll see him fight week, and hopefully, you know, Chris Senior's is here and involved for the fight week. Look, it's a momentous occasion, and it's an occasion that will mean a lot to both of the fathers as well, to see what their children are doing. So, you know, hopefully he is back for fight week and around the fight. But let's wait and see. I'm not on speed dial with him right now. So, but if I hear anything, ID Boxing will be the first to know.
I surely hope so. Final. You know me. I like a couple of final questions. Price point on DAZN PPV. How much is it going to cost?
Release soon from DAZN. They'll release the info on it as soon as they're in a place to do so, and we'll keep you updated.
Absolutely will. Frank Smith, always a pleasure. Thanks very much for speaking to ID Boxing. Look forward to catching up with you soon.
Cheers, mate. Good to see you.
Nice. Cheers, Frank.